A special concert by the Finns, One Desire, where they played with the Shadow Orchestra and where they took their bombastic hard rock to a whole new level of impact. Not having access to the images, this is an album also available on DVD and Blu-ray. We can only speak of what we hear, and what we hear is a band with the ability to add a lot of melody to their hard rock, something we had already proven by their 2 studio albums. The orchestral arrangements are somewhat subtle, working in the background of the compositions and not altering them substantially. The grandiosity effect is achieved, and this is a good product for the band's fans until the 3rd album comes out.
As I have said many times, deathcore is not my cup of tea at all. However, that is an advantage because it leaves a lot of room to be surprised. Although Veil of Maya are not exactly unknown to us, the American band is pointed out as one of the great references in the way deathcore can even be something quite interesting. 6 years of absence didn't change that, and this return with Mother means that no changes are expected either. The electronic elements, the melodies and the still bet on the weight and the mathematical and sometimes disconcerting riffs justify the role that the band has had as one of the boldest references in the genre. Perhaps the melody is even more pronounced, but in this case it makes it easy to be captured by its power.
Jayle is the solo expression of Young Widow's Evan Patterson that has ended up taking on far more interesting proportions than a simple creative outlet. Musically expansive but can be crudely summed up as Americana-soaked neo-folk, where vintage keyboards and synths create an atmosphere that is as palpable and dense as it is memorable. This will be a work that lovers of ambient and neo-folk might enjoy even if it's not an album that fits those parameters. A cinematic aura that makes us think of David Lynch, Eternal Reference, when listening to songs like the epic finale When We Are Dogs. It's not for everyone, but for those who want it, they'll have their hearts full.
Seven long years later, a new album from the Germans Craving, Call of the Sirens, makes up for the time they've been silent, bringing 8 tracks, and 2 covers, that mix black and melodic death in a classic way, based on folk melodies. The way they do it almost makes it difficult to try to put a definitive label on them. And that's a good thing. It's always a sign that we're in front of a band that has its own personality and that manages to bring refreshing proposals, as it is what we can hear in their 4th album. Even the covers work perfectly well, the first being the unexpected El Diablo, original by Elena Tsagranu, and the second Chum, original by Gozu. No fillers and solid, this is one of the great releases of 2023.
Remember how in 2021 it was a big surprise to catch the Hellrider album, a super band fronted by Chris Boltendahl that also featured members of Gravedigger and Orden Ogan. 2 years later, the surprise is even bigger when we have another new project from Chris Boltendahl, this one using the name as a presentation card and featuring again, this time, former members of Orden Ogan. If Hellrider had a more heavy metal tone, Steelhammer does not disguise the taste of Gravedigger. Obviously, Chris' voice makes you identify with them immediately, but the songs themselves are more power metal. Nothing that will not be undone as we dive into this album, and realizing many nuances that distinguish them from the classic German band. Now the question is, was there a need for yet another project with a vocalist who has a very distinctive voice that will always be associated with his main band? Maybe not. However, Reborn in Flames is still a great Teutonic power metal album, with a guitar work that, by itself, separates the waters.
Debut of Lust, a Spanish band that promises and already delivers something in this their debut album. Invictus is a piece of metalized hardcore that will leave no one indifferent. Powerful and full of muscle, it's very easy to get going to the sound of meshes like Isolation and Live to See, just to name 2 examples. Just over 20 minutes that guarantee plenty of fun and that we don't mind spinning around for a few more listens once we've reached the end.
Screamachine are back after leaving us an excellent impression with their debut album in 2021. Church of the Scream is everything that its cover and title suggests, a place of prayer and communion to heavy metal, where it does not just try, and succeed, to capture the essence of the style, but also inserts a modern facet through its production that makes it even more interesting. Heavy metal lovers know that this is a band they can count on, having here 10 more hymns to praise and worship the sacred sound of heavy metal.
There's so much good music coming out every day that it's only when you're brought to attention that you realize the passage of time. Like the fact that we now have a new Gozu album to listen to and realize that it's been 5 years since the last one. It's all considerations that chip away at its importance that begins to sound Tom Cruise Control, the first in a collection of addictive stoner songs. Perhaps even the most solid and cohesive collection of songs the band has presented in its career. The kind you can easily get lost in and sounds like a classic. That is, a sense of positive déjà vu, where you hear something